The slander industry. It's pretty big online, and some of you might have even been victims of it, and you have absolutely no recourse. The slander industry online is booming with websites like Bad Girl Reports, Busted Cheaters, and Worst Homewrecker. The New York Times had a feature on this that I think is worth reading because it gives you a sense of just how little power people have when it comes to being defamed online. For about 1/3 of the people, the nasty posts appear to be the first pages of their search results. So if they Google their names, it'll be the first thing that pops up. For more than half, these gripe sites showed up at the top of their image results. One woman in Ohio, for instance, was the subject of so many negative posts that Bing declared in bold at the top of her search results that she is a liar and a cheater, the same way it states that Barack Obama was the 44th president of the United States. For roughly 500 of the 6,000 people we searched for, again, this is from the New York Times, Google suggested adding the phrase cheater to a search of their names. So these gripe sites, I mentioned a few of them in the lead here, allow for anyone who's holding a grudge against you to accuse you of all sorts of terrible things. And you essentially have no power in getting it changed, taken down. You might have a little power if you have a lot of money laying around and you can literally pay for a service that's put out by the very people who created these websites in the first place. I'll get to those details in just a second, but Cenk, gripe sites, go.
Okay, so look, the internet has given us wonderful things, it's given us horrible things, because basically it puts up a mirror to humanity. And it's removed the gatekeepers, and that's got terrific upsides, because the gatekeepers were the people in power and they were oppressing the rest of us for their own benefit. It's got horrible downsides because it has unleashed demons. And this is one of the darkest corners of the internet, where people slander you for profit. And with the twist coming up on who's actually doing it is unreal. But it also did remind me of politics, because I remember there was an alt-right figure who's so toxic, I don't even want to say his name, who originally came up with the idea that has really, in essence, become QAnon. He said now, what about 6 years ago? I forget the exact timing, but it was around when Trump began to run. He said, why don't we just accuse our political opponents of being child molesters? And then it'll show up at the top of their Google results. It doesn't matter if it's true. We'll just hurt them politically and we'll shame them. And then it'll scare everyone else into not fighting us. So let's just slander them so badly, they just surrender basically. And we just destroy any opponent of ours by lying about them in the most horrific way you could imagine. Just openly saying it. And yeah, and that became eventually, I don't know that he was involved in it or not, but eventually that idea became QAnon about how Democrats are child molesters and child murderers and drink brain juice, etc. Now this though, does it to not people in power, not generically political opponents, it does it to you.
To private citizens.
You have no power, etc. This isn't political. This is just because they know you can't fight back. They know you're going to have to pay the ransom.
Yeah.
So they pick you one by one and say the worst things about you. Now it's on your Google results, and God help you if you don't have money. How are you going to get it out of there? You can't, and then everybody sees that this is the result on you. It's just the worst thing you've ever seen.
It really is. It's depressing when you think about it, because this has now not only become a system of slandering people and destroying their opportunities when it comes to employment and what have you, but it's become like there's a profit motive behind all of it, which again we'll get to in a second. But first, it's important to hear from the very people who put these sites up to begin with. And so the New York Times got in touch with the founders of one of these sites, Cyrus Sullivan, who's 37 years old from Portland, Oregon, has been in the complaint site business since 2008. When he started STDcarriers.com, it was inspired by his own experience in his senior year at the University of Oregon. He said he had sex with a woman who belatedly told him that she had herpes. So he's holding this grudge, he wants to retaliate, and he thinks of this website, which he stands by fully, even though he knows that there's definitely a possibility that people will go on there and make false accusations about other people. He said he didn't feel bad about spreading unverified slander. Teach children not to talk to strangers, then teach them not to believe what they read on the internet, he said.
Okay, so this guy's just saying, yeah, I don't care. I'm helping people lie and ruin other people's lives. Ha ha, teach your kids that there are horribly evil people like me online. By the way, I don't know if this story about getting STDs is even true.
Right.
Who knows? These guys are the most vicious liars and least moral people on the planet. So it's entirely possible that story. Who cares if it's true anyway, right? And is that the right way to react to a story like that? Of course not. Oh, I'm gonna ruin your life for the rest of your life. Anyways, but then opening it up so that he could profit off of it, so that other people could slander without him verifying, just says, you're just a terrible person.
So how does he profit off of it? These websites typically, will run AdSense ads, for instance, so they'll make a little money there. But where they make the real money is by reaching out to the very people who have been slandered to let them know, hey, you want to get this taken down? You can. You just got to pay for it. So Sullivan had started a reputation management service to help get people get undesirable information about themselves removed from their search engine results. The gold package costs nearly $700, basically $700. For those customers, Sullivan would alter the computer code underlying the offending posts, instructing search engines to ignore them. And by the way, the $700, that's pretty expensive, right? Except the New York Times piece goes into detail about other services that charge anywhere between $7,500 to $25,000. That's what's going on.
So the guy's running the site that slanders you then says, well, I could fix that slander as long as you pay me the ransom. In this case, they have your reputation, and I mean, look, again, these are real people. These aren't politicians. They got no way. I've been slandered 1,000 different ways online, and they do it professionally. There's like trolls and bots that do it on almost every tweet that I have. The right wing writes one thing, the corporate Democrats write another, the leftists write a third smear. They all have their different smears they do it. But I'm used to it, right? And I'm a professional, and then you could see other things about me and I could fight back. But when they do it to you, what the hell are you gonna do? So do we have a government left in this country? Do they protect our citizens in any way, shape, or form?
Look, I'm not making excuses for them at all. There needs to be something done legislatively, but it's a lot more tricky than we think, because one thing that protects these websites is Section 230. Right? Section 230 stipulates that a website cannot be held accountable for what users post on it. And I think that protection in some contexts makes a lot of sense. Obviously, in this context, does not make sense. And so there needs to be, I mean, if there is legislation, it would need to be crafted thoughtfully and in a very nuanced way. And that's difficult to do when Congress is full of a bunch of, honestly, people who can't even legislate on things they understand, much less things they don't understand, like the internet. Yeah,
look, I hear you on that, and Section 230 is critical. You almost can't have any websites without 230's protection. So I wouldn't want to get rid of that at all, and I don't want to, and then the thing with politicians, they'll just use it for their own. Now you're not allowed to criticize me online. All the independent things should be shut down. We know how that goes, right? At a minimum, someone should obliterate them with lawsuits, right? There are still some laws in this country against defamation, slander, you name it, etc. Bad guys use those laws all the time. They'll attack you, and then when you say it's not true, they'll go, oh, defamation, and I'm gonna sue you, right? Are there any good guys left in the world, right? To try to fight back against this, and probably part of it is intimidation. So anytime anybody fights back, they probably smear them. And so there aren't a lot of people in our situation where we've already got hit with everything in the world. And so we have, in a sense, the luxury of being able to fight back on your behalf. And part of that, and I'll give the New York Times a ton of credit for doing this story, and for the reporter to actually put his name on those sites as kind of a guinea pig, that was actually courageous. And now he's like, well, now I'm having trouble getting it off.
Yeah, there were two reporters who worked on this story, and I know for a fact that at least one of them immediately got targeted on these websites. So it gives you a sense of the kind of retaliation that they deal with. So it does take a bit of courage to report on this. But look, you guys, like the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is when this type of defamatory content exists online, think about what that does to someone's economic opportunities, right? It destroys their possibilities, and it's already difficult enough to be able to find a decent job that pays the bills, that provides for your family. The fact that this exists is just so heartbreaking and terrible. And we need to be protecting one another, being decent to one another, and this is the antithesis of that.
But I will say one thing, look, we do our show online and we're laser focused on making sure that we get all the facts right. And then we layer on our perspective and analysis on top of that. But we've been around for about 20 years. We're literally the oldest show on the internet. And so we've gotten people to understand that we're trustworthy and we're trying to, and when we get anything wrong, we correct it, etc. Right? But when you read things online overall, so the reason I give you all that context is I'm not one of these people who say, oh, if you see it online, it's not true. No, a lot of things you see on TV are totally not true. At the same time, please, if you're just seeing some sort of social media post, check the source. Check to see where it came from. Don't assume it's true because it's written down. That's the magical thing about text. The minute you write something down, people go, oh, well, it's on a website, it must be true. Oh, it's on Facebook, it must be true. Yep. Facebook is not a thing, it's a platform.
It's a thing.
Okay, no, my point is that I have had family members say like, oh no, I saw it on Facebook. No, you didn't see it on Facebook, you saw it on a page on Facebook.
Yeah.
What page was it, and did they actually have any kind of credibility or not? So please give each other a break and don't judge each other. Half the time it ain't even true. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.